Welcome to Talk with Tara, the podcast where we dive into the bold, the funny, and the fascinating. I'm Tara, your host, bringing you unfiltered conversations on life, love, and everything in between. Hit that follow button so you're always in the loop. And now let's get started. Welcome back to Talk with Tara, everyone. Today we're diving into something powerful, topics that have been getting a lot of attention lately, but still leave many people wondering what they really mean. That is words like trauma, somatics, and the nervous system healing. So many of us are quietly carrying stress and grief and old wounds. And during midlife, when our bodies and our hormones and identities are totally shifting, anything we haven't fully processed can rise to the surface. Trauma doesn't just live in our memories, it lives in our bodies. And it'll stay there until we create space to safely process and release it. That's why I'm so excited about my guest today, Alisha Slaughter. She's an integrative health and mind-body practitioner who helps women restore balance and resilience through her 3 pillars of health: nourish, move, and thrive. Drawing from her own lived experience with trauma and burnout, along with her expertise in nutrition, somatic healing, and therapeutic support, Alisha is here to help us understand what nervous system healing truly looks like and how we can begin to reconnect with our bodies in a way that feels safe and empowering. So happy to have you today, Alisha.
I am so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yay. And Alisha lives in Santa Cruz, which is close to the water, and I live close to the water. So we're both in very nourishing places. One thing I want to start with before we talk about understanding trauma is I sent a questionnaire out to some listeners and to some friends, and I had 5 subject matters that you had sent me that you could talk about. Everyone wrote me back and said they wanted to talk about trauma. And I thought that's so interesting. Maybe I had one person who picked some other topic that you had sent because you gave me a number of great topics, but trauma was the one that everyone voted on. So that leads me to believe that so many people carry trauma that is unresolved. And another thing, Alisha, is I had a friend staying with me a couple weeks ago, and she had so much childhood trauma that she kept repeating that came up. And she felt like she could never heal that trauma. And she's married, she has a little kid, and that trauma lives with her every day. So tell us about trauma, and then tell us about what somatic healing means and how that works with healing the nervous system. Kind of help us out, like ground us with this.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a really good place to start. So I want to start with just defining the nervous system. And I think these words are very popular right now, right? Like these phrases like nervous system, trauma healing, somatic healing. And I think like my experience is that most people are like interested in them. Some people even talk about them, but very few actually even know what they mean. So I think as a baseline, it's really important to understand it. So the nervous system is controlled by your vagus nerve, which is the main cranial nerve that goes from the base of the brain all the way down into your gut. And that nerve controls all of your body functions. So it controls on the way down your heartbeat, your lungs, your gut, all of your sexual organs. And there are 2 main modes. So there's sympathetic, which you'll hear sometimes, which is like fight or flight. And then there's parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. And if it's your nervous system is your body's monitoring and safety system. So it's constantly kind of scanning your environment for cues of safety or danger. And when you're safe, your body, you're in rest and digest, right? And so that's when your body can digest its food. That's when you can actually rest, repair and recovery. That's when you can find joy and connection, because otherwise then your nervous system is in that fight or flight, right? And that is like slowing down your heartbeat or speeding it up, right? Slowing down your breath.
Question. What would depression be? Would depression be if when you're kind of feeling the blues, is that fight or flight in a way? Just curious.
Well, no, it's a good question, and we'll get to that. So Depression, anxiety, mood disorders are when the nervous system has been in a state of fight or flight for too long. That's when you get into like the freeze, the fawn, the shutdown. And that's where you get to like the nervous system doesn't know what it feels like to feel safe again. And so, depression, mood disorders. So when the nervous system does not have the ability to really easily be activated, right? We need those moments of activation, like as humans, right? We need to be able to react to things. We need to get up in the morning. We need to get ourselves to work. We need to get ready for a podcast. And what's interesting is the nervous system can't tell the difference between like what you're dealing with. It just knows that it's activated, right? So chronic stress, unresolved trauma, grief, all of those things start to load on your nervous system and just make you feel unsafe, like all the time, right? And so you need to actively retrain your body, which is when I get into the somatic part of explaining it. Like somatics helps you retrain your body of what it feels like to feel safe again. And true healing happens when you can train your body what it feels like to feel safe. I want to say a couple more things about the nervous system. So there's the two modes, right? The fight or flight, and then fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. That's activation. And then there's rest and digest, connection, safety, joy, that type of thing. And what's really interesting to note is that only a small part of our experience is conscious, that is driven by the thinking brain. And most of how we experience life and react is shaped by our nervous system and the quality of our nervous system. So for example, like depression, right? Depression, anxiety, a lot of health issues a lot of the times comes from a chronically dysregulated nervous system. And it's kind of like our subconscious patterns of survival, right? Safety and survival. And chronic stress, unresolved trauma keeps our nervous system on guard, right? And so sometimes it even keeps us on guard to where we can't even tell, like, what is safe anymore, right? Like, are these people safe? Is that place safe? And so your body starts to not trust, if it goes on too long, like really anything. So the nervous system is always trying to keep you safe, scanning for danger, and then really controlling your bodily functions as like to protect resources, right? And so that's why you have to be mindful if you're under a lot of stress or you have like trauma. You want to give your body and your nervous system some time to process and to find safety again. So trauma is the body's protective response to like overwhelm or threat. And what's interesting, so there's different levels of trauma, right? And you were talking about your friend who has childhood trauma. And what's interesting about childhood trauma is that really sets you up for a pretty hard time in your life. Like your early childhood experiences and the level of attunement from your caregivers and your ability to reliably get support or have someone attuned to you or have a safe place to be can really affect the rest of your life. It gives you a bunch of maladaptive coping patterns. I mean, childhood trauma is one of the hardest things to work with because there's two different types of like main trauma that we talk about. There's like people talk about PTSD, and that's usually in relationship to like one big moment in your life, right? Where it's like an accident or a death or watching someone die, right? That's like you can have a moment that you're trying to heal from. But there's another type of trauma called complex trauma that's getting more and more coverage now. And complex trauma happens when there's like lots of little, they call them big T's, little T's, lots of traumas or chronic stress that happen to you over a long period of time. And especially people who have early childhood trauma really struggle with CPTSD. And that is, we can talk more about that, but the difference between PTSD and CPTSD is CPTSD, especially early childhood stuff, it changes your whole personality because really your personality is just a bunch of maladaptive coping mechanisms, right? Because you've been trying to keep yourself safe from your earliest memory. And so it's like, who would you even be if you knew what it felt like to be safe and operate in the world? Like you're pretty much your whole life's experience is looking out and scanning for danger, which is something that I got identified with CPTSD so I can talk more about that. And it's really good to be aware of it because then you're like, you have a lot more compassion for yourself. You understand, okay, well, this is why I struggle in relationships and these are why I pick the people that I do. And because it's so ingrained in your nervous system that, people, and then there's all the attachment theories, right? So it's like that early childhood stuff comes into, are you anxiously attached? Are you avoidant attached? Are you disorganized attached? And so for people who like, for example, didn't have childhood attunement and have all that childhood trauma and they're anxiously attached, right? It's like, they're going to be scanning constantly. Is this person like me? Like, am I okay? Like, people pleasing, that type of thing. Yeah. And so that's a personality trait, but that's a protective maladaptation to you trying to get attunement from your caregivers. Cause that was the only way that people would pay attention to you is if you were the good girl or if you did this or that. And so you realize these traumas later in life, right? And so just to kind of go down a list of things that can be considered trauma, abuse, emotional, physical, mental, whether it's childhood, ongoing, later in life, accidents, loss. Grief is a really interesting one, especially for midlife women, because you live long enough and things happen, and grief can be a number of things. I mean, it can be, grieving things that did happen, grieving things that didn't happen, grieving things you wanted to happen that didn't happen. I mean, grief is like a really big one. And to not be able to process that, to have someone relationally sit with you, like we're expected to grieve alone most of the time, and nobody grieves in isolation. And so grief is like a loss, and grief is a big one that I like to focus on. But even chronic stress, criticism, like corporate trauma is, I think, a big one that doesn't get enough coverage. But, just chronically disconnected, emotional neglect, like those are all kind of things that over time, like when you don't, anytime that you really in your core don't feel safe, don't feel attuned to, don't feel supportive. And if you don't process it, which I'll talk about somatics in a moment, it just holds in your body. And it's like, we are so used to like cognitively trying to like ruminate and think about things and think our way through things. But a lot of the work that needs to be done is like attuning to how that energy is sitting in your body and being like, okay, like how do we move you? How do we process you? Like, how do we love you? Like, and when I say you, it's like this energy in our body, and it's the body has a different language than the mind. The body speaks in sensation. And so if you think back to the nervous system, right, it's like the beating of the heart. You'll notice either the heart squeezes or it lightens, or the lungs, like you can't take a deep breath, or you can take a big deep breath. And gut health issues are huge with unresolved trauma. And that's all somatic. That's all being driven by the body.
Is that because our brain is just so attached to our body? Is that why? Like, because it's like you can tell yourself, people can say I'm sick, and they actually feel sick when they're not sick. Like your brain is just, your mind is so powerful that it can actually make you feel things that aren't actually really happening.
Yeah, the brain is interesting. But what I have learned is cognitively, what we think it actually drives a lot, our thinking, but it only really triggers our subconscious, and our subconscious is held in our body and in our soma. So really most of how we operate in the world, most of how we think, how safe we feel, how connected we feel really has more to do with your nervous system than your brain. And a fascinating fact about your brain is your brain will believe anything you tell it repeatedly. So that's why people say like your words are really powerful, your thoughts are really powerful. And I think we don't have to get into politics, but I think there's a lot of examples out there of like people who have repeated things to themselves enough time, and they're just like walking around being like, yeah, this is the truth. And you're like, oh, okay, but we have to remember that stories that you have repeated to yourself since childhood, right? We have some of those things where, dang, I've been like dealing with this thought pattern since childhood. It's because we've been, but is it necessarily true, right? And so that's where cognitively you're always wanting to kind of question and be like, hey, is this something I want to continue to repeat to myself? Is it even true? Because after a while, your brain will be like, no, that's true, because I've been telling myself that for the last 40, 50 years. And it's like, it doesn't have to be true. But thoughts trigger emotions, and emotions trigger reactions in the body. And so that's the work when we get into somatics. Somatics is a process to help the body complete and process these emotions and the stress and the trauma that we have. And what somatics teaches us, and what was really interesting is like, I didn't really realize and didn't know anything about the complex trauma and like the childhood issues. And then going, it's been one thing, you can go back and I'm like, if I think back to my childhood, like, did I ever feel safe? And like this idea of safety is really interesting to consider. And so it's like, I think back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I ever felt safe, And when you don't feel safe, you disconnect from your body because that's a protection mechanism. Somatics, soma means body. So somatics is just a practice of attuning to the sensations within your body and learning the language of your body. And when I first started the practice, I would, you have to get quiet. The breath is one of the easiest ways to connect with your body. And actually kind of a fun fact, sometimes the breath isn't easy to connect with because we're so anxious, but the times that you can connect to your breath, the longer you exhale, the more it drops your body into a parasympathetic mode. So even if like throughout the day, I call them somatic snacks, if you can just take a couple of really conscious breaths and lengthen out the exhale as much as you possibly can, that helps trigger your body into a parasympathetic mode. So that's just,
I'm just wondering why. How does it do that? Because it does. I mean, I've done that before and I've watched my heart rate go down. I've I've looked at my watch and I've taken these deep breaths and I've seen it go from like 62 to 58, just from breathing. How does it do that?
So you think back to the vagus nerve, right? Mm-hmm. And so the vagus nerve, breathing and lengthening out the exhale tones the vagus nerve. So it sends signals to the vagus nerve, which is controlling your heart, which is controlling your lungs, which is controlling your gut. And it is just the way it works. So if you inhale, the heart speeds up. Mm-hmm. And as you exhale and lengthen the exhale, the heart slows down.
It's the exhale.
It's just the way that it works. And so that is just a really good practice of connecting to your breath. And it's also, the breath can be used as an anchor to kind of stop thinking so much and just allowing yourself to reside within your body.
Yes.
But when I first started somatic practice, I would literally be like, okay, like how does my heart feel? And I felt like nothing. I couldn't tap into any sensations in my body because most of us have been going for so long, overriding our body's natural cues. Right. And especially as women, women are cyclical beings. We have 4 different phases of our cycle if you are still menstruating, right? And those different phases of your cycle give you different hormones and require different things of you, right? And even as you go through perimenopause and go into menopause, your hormones are always changing, and we should be attuning to what that is and giving our body, there's certain times where rest is more necessary. There's certain times where you're going to have more energy. There's certain times when, you can eat different foods. They don't affect you the same as women. And women are kind of in a society where we're not able to honor our cycles. We have to override, right? It's on lack of sleep, we have to operate in patriarchal systems. We can't really be women like we're supposed to be. And even from a very young age, we're told, we need to look a certain way and we need to act a certain way and all these things. And so we start disconnecting from our body at a very young age. And so this practice of being how do I feel? How does my, not thinking, but how does my heart feel? Where am I holding tension in my body? Really attuning to your body. And that's another thing, right? And people, if you can't see me, but it's you go through life, right? And life kind of happens to you and you kind of close up, right? Your heart closes up, your shoulders are around your ears, your hands are clenching, your face is squeezed up. That's your body in fight or flight. And what somatics does is oh, I can relax my shoulders. Oh, whoa. And then you're I'm going to check in with my heart, kind of soften around my heart. And if the heart doesn't soften, it's okay, what are you holding? Do you need help? And then you can tap, you can move your body, singing, dancing, jumping, smacking.
Humming, I heard. Humming is good for your vagus nerve, right?
Yes. There's so many different ways of connecting to your body. And this is all too, this is not modern day stuff. This is indigenous wisdom that we have just lost connection with of, how to really be attuned to what we're feeling in our hearts and in our guts and how well we can breathe and, relaxing. I've been grinding my teeth since I was 8, and so now it's I'm really with somatics is I do a lot of facial massage. I'm constantly being is my jaw relaxed, are my shoulders relaxed? Can I breathe easily in and out of my body, all the way down into my pelvic floor and my lower belly? We're just, and so many of us too, it's do Kegels. And it's I've been doing Kegels for 23 years. And it's you're not supposed to hold and do it. You know what I mean? We were taught not to relax.
Yes. Yeah.
It's really, so does that kind of, do you have any questions about any of that?
Yes. No, that's really great. So now we know what is trauma, somatics, and the nervous system, what they mean. Now we're kind of grounded and where trauma can live in the body. Now, whenever I feel I got an email from somebody that's been an issue lately, and I just felt, as soon as I see their name, I feel my stomach squeeze it. I feel it squeezing in my stomach. So that's me being aware of where I hold my trauma, I guess, or negative energy, right? For example.
Yeah. And so what is your natural response to that?
Okay. So happens? I feel this, I saw this lady's email, who's a really bad person. I saw it today. And my stomach felt that feeling like it's squeezing, like prickly almost. And then I take a breath and I just say, I feel my stomach. I know what it's about. There's nothing I can do. I'm just going to relax into it. And then it goes away.
So that's really good. The other thing you can do is place your hands on your stomach, right?
Okay.
Acknowledge where the discomfort is, send your breath there. And you kind of treat it like it's a thing, right? You're like, oh, I hear you. That affect, that email got you. That email made you react. And that is like right. You don't feel safe. That's an instant.
I don't feel safe.
I don't feel safe. That doesn't feel good. Your body reacts. And then you put your hands on your tummy and you might close your eyes and you just try to soften and you just pay attention to it and you let it be there. So to process it, right? You don't try to get rid of it. You pause, the power of the pause, as they say.
Pause, yeah.
You can put your hands on it. You can connect to your breath and you can just see if you can get it to move or soften. And then you can also talk to it where you'd be like, hey, wow, that was a reaction. I felt that. I'm attuning to you. I'm here for you. And sometimes, in my sessions too, we talk to it and be like, hey, like, what do you need right now? Do you need to walk away from the desk? Do you need to go for a walk? Do you need to get some water? And as you start to talk to these sensations, they're like, yeah, I think I need to walk away from my computer. And then, abdominal massage is really, really good. Like, I love if people are comfortable with it as they start the practices of somatics is like hands on body, like even your own hands on your heart and just like telling yourself like, hey, I love you. It feels really weird at first for some people, but then you sit there and it can also be really helpful for like childhood stuff of just like hands on your heart and being like, hey, tell your heart, like, I love you, and get used to telling yourself, I love you, hands on your belly, like, I love you. And your body's like, you do. And then it kind of softens and it's
self-love.
Like, yes, self-love, 100%. I actually have a club called the Self-Love Club and everyone's in it. If on video.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's so cute. She's showing a hat, and maybe I'll show that on our little clip.
Yep.
Self-Love Club,
Self-Love
cat baseball
Club.
Hat, one of those cool baseball hats. What are they called?
The
Flat
trucker
cap.
hats.
Yeah.
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 Because it is a lot of self-love. And I started the Self-Love Club kind of as a joke. I teach a couple public yoga classes a week, which yoga is one of the best somatic movements.
I was just going to say, when you're describing this, it reminds me of my gentle yoga class I take on Sundays at 4:00 to reset. I don't do it all the time, which is bad, but it resets my nervous system. I feel like just taking that time to breathe and just... for myself, it is you sound like my yoga teacher.
Oh, yeah. And once you kind of get the hang of it, what it feels like to attune and what it feels like to soften and what it feels like to connect to your breath, then anything can be somatic. Like it's nothing that like I hold a secret key as a somatic practitioner to it. It's like everyone has this ability, but most of us have just stopped listening and forgotten. And so, it's something that is a very personal thing that, it's your relationship between you and your body. And it's something that you're gonna, there's no right or wrong way to do it. There's a bunch of different techniques, but how you do it is going to be very personal to you. And so any yoga class can be somatic. Any walk outside can be somatic, right?
Oh, I love my walks outside.
Mate, that is the best. Like
it's
a daily walk in nature. Another kind of fun somatic thing that brings a lot of safety to the body is bird song, which is really interesting. So if you are going for a walk, like no buds in the ears, if you're, if you're outside and tuning into nature. And there's research that shows that, your amygdala, which kind of in your brain controls your fight or flight response that sends signals into your vagus nerve. When you hear bird song, it triggers like a very like lizard part of your brain to being like, oh, you're safe because, back in like prehistoric days, if we were walking around like cavemen and we heard birds, that meant that there was no predators around.
Oh,
which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So when you hear birds, like that's a moment to be like, oh, like really pay attention. And you hear the birds, pay attention to the softening of your skin. If you can take a deeper breath, feel your feet on the ground. So there's this little moments of like, okay, just taking it all in and being in the present moment. And and all of those things just train your body of like what it feels like to be safe and present and connected.
Yeah, yesterday I was feeling the blues, like, because working from home all the time, you're kind of like in this tube all day long. And I'm like, oh God, I need to go on a walk. So I went on a walk and I got back. I felt like a totally different person, just going on an hour and a half walk by the water. And I did have my ear. I was listening to a podcast with Jay Shetty and Madonna because I was so curious about Madonna's Kabbalah, training. So I was listening to that, and but there was a point where I'm like, I have to stop listening. I have to take this off and kind of listen to nature. And I could hear the water against the rocks, and I felt like a totally different person. So I think nature bathing or being in the forest as well just feels so like when there are tons of green trees and moss, and it's just so therapeutic.
It's medicine.
It is. It really is medicine. Is it possible for people to heal childhood trauma? Like what does it take? I mean, like my friend who was staying with me just felt like, she was like, I don't think I'm ever going to heal from this, ever. And I said, yes, you will, but you have to make a conscious effort to want to heal from this. Repeating over and over again all the bad things that happen when you were a young woman or a young girl is not going, just being angry is not going to heal your trauma. But I'm not an expert. I mean, it was just logic.
Yeah. Well, what's really kind of interesting about childhood trauma and the wounds that you carry through your life with childhood trauma and the way that it foundationally messes with you, right? Your personality, it changes your personality. And there's research that shows that those people who have really severe childhood trauma and are dealing with CPTSD, it actually messes with your nervous system and your brain function so much that people can present as, what was the word? I'm going to say the wrong word here, as neurodivergent.
Oh, interesting.
So there's a lot of compassion, I think to say that you're healed, I think anybody who is walking around and being like, I'm healed, honestly, like, okay, I don't know that anybody is ever healed from life, right? I mean, we are who we are because of what we've experienced. Now, how you think about it and how you compartmentalize it and how you move forward, I think is kind of the most important thing. And I think that it's okay to be angry that, people that shouldn't have had kids, and, that
right.
they did, it's like, it wasn't our fault, but now it's ours to deal with. Right. And so there's, childhood healing. There is like, somatics that help. And I think compassion and self-love that's why I started the club, is like, understanding that, look, like if I'm to compare myself to somebody who had a really attuned childhood, and everyone has their moments, right? But someone that at least had one adult that they could rely on, that they knew was going to attune to them, they're going to be in an advantage to me, who has been in a state of fight or flight since my earliest memory, right? Like,
right.
So, and then there's just like a compassion of, okay, like the way that I navigate in the world, I'm always working on it. I'm going to do my very best, but I am going to very easily be triggered back into old patterns of trying to keep myself safe, because this is how I've been acting and needing to act to keep myself safe since I was a little kid. And it's like, you get to be 50 years old and you're like, okay, like the self-love and compassion is kind of the best I can do. And just understanding, and giving yourself grace. And especially as you're going through perimenopause, like, and into menopause, these things will come up like fire in your face, and you have to kind of deal with them, and you have to spend some time. And these are going to be the things that you're going to work on and then move into the second phase of your life with such wisdom. If you give yourself the time and if you give yourself the compassion, and you make sense of them. But to expect like the fully healed thing, I don't know that anybody's ever healed. And I tend to be very cautious if anybody's like, no, I'm healed. Right. And I was like, I don't know if you are as much as you think you are.
I think healing is possible if you have forgiveness for those people who just could not be good parents. Like their parents were probably bad parents. Yeah. And so on and so forth. And And you know, my friend was like, well, I had a bad parent, but I'm not a bad parent. Yeah. So why was that person a bad parent? I'm like, well, and that's interesting. That was the question I was going to ask you early on. Is it's interesting how some people have had horrible trauma, horrible sexual abuse, like just, and they end up coping. They end up not being abusers, you know, because you hear sometimes that the abusers become abusers, and they end up really having a lot of grace and enjoying life and embracing life. And then there's others who can't even live life. Like they will self-harm, or they won't end up living their lives. They'll kill themselves because they've had such trauma. It's interesting, like how some people can handle the trauma and grow from it, and some people just can't. And I wonder what that's about.
Well, it's nature versus nurture. And we all are born with a certain nervous system, you know, state.
Yeah.
And, you know, even children from the same family, right?
Yes.
So even my kids, like I have 2 daughters, and I have one daughter that has a very specific experience with like what it was like growing up with my husband and I. And then my other daughter they're a couple years apart, has a completely different experience of what we were like as parents.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's birth order and there's learning and, you know, all different types of things. And was I a completely perfect parent? Like, absolutely not. But I did try my very best.
Nobody's a completely, right. I mean, we all try our best.
But it's so interesting, even with children, they can be, you know, in the same family around the same time with the same parents in the same house, and have completely different ways of looking at their childhood, and different levels of trauma, and different levels of things that they need to work on, and different personality traits because of how they were born. And so it's, you know, it's just humans. We're all going to be different.
Yeah.
And that's why you can't compare what you consider trauma for you against someone else's trauma, because it's never going to be the same, you know?
No. Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And sometimes parents will say to their kids, oh, you had it so good compared to what I had.
Yeah.
You can't even complain. And then that kid may have had their own kind of idea of trauma or abandonment, and they're not allowed to complain because the other person had it so much bad, you know. So you're right. You can't compare because everybody has their own. It's all relative. It's all relative. Yeah. And I would say, you know, what you're saying is so important to like love yourself and love that little child. Like be your own mom to yourself now that you're older. Like be the nurturer to yourself.
Yeah. And creativity and play. I just want to shout out for creativity and play. Those types of things as adults that we really also like don't have the time for or lose connection with. Creativity and play are very much early childhood, like inner child healing types of things. So I just wanted to give a shout out for those two things.
Can you give examples of that? Like what would you say to one of your clients if, you know, for creativity and play?
So creativity, you know, is just like, I'll ask you, like for creativity, like how do you tap into creativity? And what does that mean to you?
My creativity is my podcasts and meeting people, and it brings out my creativity. And I like to write, and I'm a creative writer. I like to arrange flowers. I like to cook. All different kind of creative practices.
And those are all perfect. And one of the things that I think is really super impactful is anytime you work with your hands, right? We're so, and not computer, but flower arranging, the cooking, writing. And I don't know how much you're writing pen to paper, but those types of things are so good for us.
Yeah.
Creativity can be painting. Creativity can be dance. Like I teach yoga, and yoga feels very creative for me because I'm using my body and sharing different ways of connecting to, you know, your body with other people. Creative. And I think it's going to be different for everyone, but anytime you're using your body or your hands and you're feeling expressive, it just opens up in something inside of you where you're like, you know, like really core stuff that's like an aliveness that I think we're all really craving.
I agree. You know, I was thinking about you, and you were talking about your childhood trauma, but if you didn't have that childhood trauma, you probably wouldn't be such an amazing practitioner right now. Kind of prepared you for what you really love to do and helping other people. Don't you think sometimes bad things happen to us because we're supposed to evolve and help other people?
Yeah. So as they say, you know, the pain is the path, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're giving pain a purpose 100%. And I think it helps, I'm in school right now to be a marriage and family therapist. But like lived experience, I know that when I talk to therapists, I run down a list. I'm like, okay, have you been married? Do you have children? Have you dealt with like parental death? Have you dealt with child death? Like there's a number of questions, and I'm like, we're not going to relate unless you say yes to most of those, So I hope to be really relatable and understanding and compassionate and empathetic, because there's really it's been a wild life, and I don't think that anybody could really say much that I'd be like, oh, I'm like, oh, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. And that's good, because you come from a non-judgmental place, because, you've had your own experiences. So people don't want to be judged because of their trauma. They don't want to be judged. That's the worst. Like, oh yeah, she's got baggage. Yeah, we all have baggage. Can you talk about nutrition? Because I know nutrition is one of your pillars, and talk about how nutrition is really important during midlife, and what are some things we can do to support our body with nutrition? Maybe some takeaways for people.
Well, for sure. And then before I go into that, I just wanted to say one thing as like a takeaway is the body heals and thrives when it feels safe.
Okay.
So even back to your friend, right? Even as we go into nutrition and some of the pillars of holistic health that I help people with, we have to remember that there's going to be times we don't feel safe, but that the body really, it repairs, it recovers, it works towards healing. We need to find moments of safety. And so a lot of people come to me either with, mental health issues and they want a natural approach, or they come to me with digestive issues, or they come to me with like hormonal imbalances, or 8 out of 10 women have thyroid issues. Like, I have a lot of women that come to me with thyroid issues. And it's interesting to like think about, okay, well, what has the role of not feeling safe been in this, right? And if you think back to the vagus nerve, it's like chronically sending signals to all of your sex organs, to your thyroid, to your digestion, that like, I'm not safe, is never going to allow it to regulate. So that's why it's funny, when I started on this path, I started with nutrition and became a holistic nutritionist. And then I was really into mind, body health. So I became a yoga teacher. And then it was like, people were still struggling. And then I found the somatics. And then it was like, I almost wish I'd started with that, because it's so foundationally important to helping the body heal, is to being able to connect with moments of safety. So I just wanted to kind of like, put that out there before I go into nutrition.
Before we get into that, because you just brought up a point, during COVID, I started meditating, and I find it really interesting. Meditation totally changed my brain, the way I because I'm full of energy and I'm reactive. It made me much less reactive and much calmer. And meditation is kind of a yoga practice, right? And tell people often say, well, I can't meditate. I can't do it. I can't shut my mind. And meditation, maybe you can educate the audience what meditation is, because what I understand, it's not really shutting. I mean, if those thoughts are passing by like clouds, you are just mindful. I'm like, okay, I have that thought. It's going to pass by, but I'm going to tune into my breath.
Exactly.
Tune into my breath. So before we get into nutrition, can you talk a little bit about meditation and the benefits of meditation?
Yeah. So
for the nervous system.
Yeah, of course. And I will just say and acknowledge that sitting with yourself still is really hard. Yeah. Like if you were like, it is really uncomfortable for me to sit here with my breath and be still. It is really, really hard. And don't think you're doing it wrong if it feels hard. Don't think you're doing it wrong if you can't get your brain to stop going, because it will never stop going. I mean, there are some people who have an easier time getting their brain to shut down. But for those of us like, me and you possibly, it will keep on going, and it will keep on, all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's that thought from when I was 14. You're like, great, I thought we were done with you, but here you are again. And like, 6 a.m. on a Wednesday. But yeah, you have to and that's why I love somatics, is because it separates, right? It will acknowledge that your brain is going to keep on doing this. But then if you really just tune into how your body feels, and for me, meditation was also really hard, even though I've been practicing yoga and meditating for like probably close to 20 years now. I would sit there, and seated meditation's hard for me. It really is. But it became easier once I understood somatics and once I had a better connection with my body and sensations that were going on in my body, because then I could really just tune into how my body felt and let my brain. So in yoga, we call it the monkey mind. And sometimes I joke and I'm like, hand the monkey a banana. It's going to be doing whatever it's doing, you know, throwing its poop, like being a monkey. And you just kind of let it do it. And you're like, oh, there's that monkey doing that thing again. But then you're like, hey, come back to the body, come back to the breath, try to relax. And, you know, if seated meditation isn't for you, mindfulness meditation, like try other kinds. Like there's walking meditations. You can move your dancing can be a meditation. Like anytime you just swimming. Yes. Exercise can be a meditation. It does not have to be seated. And I know that there is this, you know, there's this picture we all have of I could just sit there for 20 minutes, you know, every single day. That's what they're saying. And, yeah, I think my biggest suggestion is like, you are not doing it wrong. If your brain is not shutting off, like that is not the point. The brain, it'll just keep on chattering like that, you know, really irritating person that won't shut up. And, you know, sometimes it's fun, like give it a name, give it a separate name and be like, you know what, I'm done with you. I'm going to put you over here to the side and I'll come back to you later. Like if it's important, I'll come back to you. Or like you can take 5 minutes, set a timer, journal before you meditate too, like get all of it out. Cause then you can be like, I've written down everything that I need. I have my little paper. And that also sometimes helps people of like, I've gotten everything I can. Cause your brain will come and be like, I don't want to forget that. I don't want to forget that. And you're like, I already wrote everything down that was important and I'll come back to that when I'm done. And then also, you know, the point of yoga is to prepare the body for meditation. So if you are like, I can't just go sit down right now, like move the body, jump around, shake. A lot of somatic stuff is like, you can paddle up and down your arms. You can, you know, shake all around and dance to a song and then kind of sit and be like, okay, I worked what I need to work out of my body. And now I can sit. I think it's just being, you know, again, self-love and compassion and not thinking like, I'm not doing this right, because you are doing it right.
And you just reminded me of something, women who are dating. If you're dating and you're about to go on a date, dance. Like dance and feel really good in your skin and move around and put some good music on. It just puts you in such a good, it is a kind of a meditation. Music just lifts your vibration, you know, just creates a totally different music that you love. Yeah. So that's really great. That's a good suggestion. Dancing.
And say a bunch of nice stuff to yourself.
Yeah.
Look in the
I'm
mirror.
hot. I'm beautiful.
Right. He or she is so lucky. Look at this. Look at this hotness.
Yep.
Yeah.
It works.
Talk yourself up. It totally does.
It does. Because you're telling your brain, like you said, your brain, you've got to tell your brain how wonderful you are.
All the time. On repeat.
Okay. Now, nutrition. Let's get into you're really good with nutrition. So some tips and how you help your clients with nutrition.
Yeah. So with nutrition, I try to simplify it. I too have been, you know, full-time working mom, raising kids. It needs to be easy. And all of my nutrition really focuses on gut health as, you know, one of the primary things that we're trying to support, because your gut is your second brain.
Yes.
Everything that you eat goes through your gut. So any nutrients that you need to get from your food needs to go through your gut. 80% of your inflammation is managed in your gut. Your hormones are managed in your gut. I could go on and on, like metabolism, everything. So one of the tips I can give you is that you want to try to eat at least 25 grams of fiber a day.
Okay.
And I start people off with a goal of trying to eat 25 grams of fiber a day and 90 grams of protein. Okay. And so fiber is going to support the gut, help keep inflammation down. It's going to help get all those good bacteria in your gut because the fiber feeds the good bacteria. And then the protein is going to help balance our hormones. It's going to help build muscle, but you also have to be working out to build the muscle. So it's like protein isn't the magic thing. Like you actually have to like do some strength training too. I wish there was a way around that, but there's not.
What about creatine? Do you recommend creatine?
So let's see. I like to first get what we need from food. Because, you know, we eat multiple times a day, like maximize your meals. I have an approach called Build a Plate. And it is essentially every time you eat, you want your plate. This is the foundation. Anything else you add on top of this is just for taste. But every time you eat, you want 50 to 75% of your plate to be high fiber, colorful vegetables. You want a serving of protein. So if you eat 3 times a day, it's 30 grams of protein. It's about the size of your palm if you're eating animal meat. So it's a lot. and then a serving of a healthy fat, which is about 2 tablespoons.
Okay.
So you start there. And then supplements. Creatine, there's a lot of research around creatine. I have tried it at both 5 grams, and now they're saying for the most brain cognition benefits, you want to go up to 10 grams. 10 grams is hurting my stomach a bit.
Okay.
So I've played around with it, and I think supplements are very unique. I think, try it. If you have extra money, I also am like pretty conscious about the environment and, buying things that we don't need, process things, even though they're supplements. So I'm really cautious with supplements. Everyone heard all the great stuff about creatine. I've been trying. Now it's one of those things to where it's like, I'm trying a bunch of different things too. So, is it the extra B vitamins that I've been taking? Is it, my sleep is better? Is it really the creatine? I've also been eating extra protein. So, I think that there's a lot of research that supports it. And I think that people should just try it. And the research now is saying, 5 grams is good, but 10 grams supposedly to get the brain benefits. When I was at 5 grams, I wasn't noticing like, wow, I'm so much more sharp and clear or anything like that. But it also does take time. So it's an investment. Supplements are an investment, and you have to be really consistent. But yes,
can you
that's
give
what
us
I
an
think of creatine.
example of your daily, your daily meal? Like, give me an example, like your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner.
Yeah. So, fasting. Sometimes fasting is good for women and sometimes it isn't. It is very unique. Sometimes I naturally fast. I listen to my body. So depending on where my cycle is, sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and I'll be like, look, I'm hungry. I eat when my body's hungry.
Okay.
I like intuitive fasting rather than like a prescribed kind of like, 16 hours off or whatever it is. Like today I didn't eat until 2, but that was just what my body wanted to do. And, I'm not forcing myself to do that.
You weren't hungry till 2. You just didn't feel it. Yeah.
And I've been having some weird things going on with my appetite. I don't know if it's perimenopause or what, but I wake up in the morning and I put protein in my coffee.
Okay.
So I start my day with protein. And then
what protein do you like to use? It's always, I never know what kind of protein to buy. I don't have any protein.
No. So I like a bone broth protein.
Okay.
It's more just like paleo, and I don't want a bunch of other things in it.
Does it taste weird?
I mean, it depends on what your tolerance is for tasting. If you're sensitive, you can tell it's in there.
Okay.
But I like every time I eat or drink something, I'm trying to maximize nutrition, right? So it's not just coffee, it's got protein in it. And then, my morning routine, which I absolutely love. It might be a little excessive, but self-love. I like to wake up early. I sit for 20 minutes and meditate in front of my red light, which I absolutely love. The red light really helps me kind of because it's warm. It gives me something to focus on. I meditated in front of the red light. I have a Juve red light. They're not cheap, but I did that rather than getting a laser I wanted to get. So it's about the same price, but I figured
it's called
it was
Juve. Okay.
Joov.
Oh, Joov. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
Juve.
gonna look that up. Okay.
And then I get in the sauna for half an hour.
Nice.
I'm really, really big fan of the sauna.
Infrared, is that what you have?
I just have a traditional Finnish sauna.
Okay.
And what's really cool about the sauna is it has the same benefits for your heart as it does to be doing some cardiovascular exercise for 30 minutes.
Wow. So, I have a sauna at the gym. I should use it more often because I love it.
100%.
Okay. How long?
I stay in for 30 minutes, although I don't think you need that long. Yeah. I think you can be in for like 15 to 20 minutes. You want to get it up to about like 190.
Okay.
But if you can do that consistently, like 4 times a week, my mental health, like I was struggling with some depression, that was feeling a lot better. My sleep has been incredible. I also stopped drinking, I will say. So quitting drinking alcohol and sauna made my sleep, like I've never slept better in my life.
Wow.
So I will just like throw that out there.
Yeah.
And like, what is it? Dementia. It decreases your dementia rate. It decreases your overall mortality rate. And what's interesting is a lot of the things that people are taking HRT for, especially as we go through perimenopause, like there's a lot of, women is like the leading cause of death for women, older women, is heart disease. Right.
Right.
And so I'm like, well, I'm not quite on I haven't started the HRT stuff yet. I'm totally for it. Like, I'm not against it or anything.
Yeah.
Just for me, I'm sensitive to adding anything to my body. So I'm figuring that like I'm getting the same benefits from the sauna as I would from HRT in terms of my heart. And that is like research back. So for heart health for women, it's like sauna is really good. Sleep. Yeah. Mood. It's helped me so immensely. But there's my sauna. And then I try to go take a walk outside. Through and go see the birds and do all that. And then I come home and I usually try to eat a little bit more protein. Like I have these little Nick sticks, turkey sticks.
Okay.
And then about 2:00, I made like a huge smoothie and I put, a bunch of like couple cups of blueberries. I put some arugula. Arugula is really good for your liver.
Oh, good to know. I love arugula.
Anything bitter is stimulating for the liver. So fun fact.
Okay.
So it's good that you like it. And then I put in a little almond butter, chia, flax, also for women, flax. Flax is huge. Omega-3s, you get fiber and omega-3s from flax. And so I just made like a huge smoothie with greens and berries and nuts and seeds and almond butter.
And it fills you up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you have to, so every time you eat, right, you want fiber, fat, protein.
Okay.
And so I had fiber, fat, and protein in that, and that will keep me good until dinner. But so I had a smoothie today, some other kind of breakfasts. Like I love, I'm always trying to figure out how to get flax in me because it is so super good for you, but it's kind of,
I'm going to start. I don't have flax and it's been on my list. So I will definitely go get it from Whole Foods or one of those places.
Yeah. And you want it ground.
Okay.
And
let me write that down.
If you can freshly grind it, that's going to be ideal, but that's also like pretty hard.
Okay.
It's an extra step. So, it kind of oxidizes as it is ground,
Sits,
but yeah. So, if you want to nerd out on that and like freshly ground it yourself, you grind it in like a coffee grinder if you have a Vitamix.
Yeah.
And I eat eggs. Although, if you're trying to get 30 grams of protein and you're eating eggs, you have to eat like 5 or 6 eggs to get 30 grams of protein. And like, who wants to eat 5 or 6 eggs?
No.
So just keep in mind that if you eat
a lot
eggs
of cholesterol too. No?
Well, it is. But what's interesting is the cholesterol, like eating cholesterol doesn't give you cholesterol.
Oh, it doesn't?
Mm-mm. Saturated fats is what turns into cholesterol. So there's you don't want to overdo, you shouldn't eat that many eggs like regularly.
No. Yeah.
But what I like to do is like 2 or 3 eggs. And then I do some like turkey sausage or something. And then like tons of greens and roasted vegetables.
But is like a turkey sausage or a turkey bacon considered processed?
So a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. But
it's okay to cheat a little bit, I guess, for protein's sake.
I like to get these Applegate turkey sausages, and they're a little bit processed, but they're easy too. And I get some protein.
Yeah.
I also get like a rotisserie chicken every single week. I try to make it easy, and my husband's a vegetarian, and I don't really like to cook meat, but I like to have it. So usually every week I always have my turkey sausage just so I can not have to eat 6 eggs to get my 30 grams of protein. I always have a rotisserie chicken every week that I just like pull the meat off of and have that prepped and ready to go. And then I usually get might be like a pound of grass-fed organic beef. And then that's usually will give me enough protein to add to meals throughout the week because I cook primarily vegetarian because we're trying to build the plate, right? So 50 to 75% of my plate is going to be vegetables no matter what. And then I just need easy protein and some healthy fats. And that's like, you can just turn that into bowls. You can turn it into salads. I make lots of soups.
What about your husband? If he's vegetarian, does he have a lot of beans?
So I cook primarily vegetarian, and yes, beans,
a lot of beans,
nuts, seeds. Yeah, I'm always trying to sneak it into whatever we're eating, and the primary meal will be vegetarian, and I just add extra protein. But as we get older, right, our body doesn't process protein as well.
Oh.
So that's why you want to be mindful of eating a little bit more protein. And for women, protein helps to keep us satiated. It helps to build muscle. And as women, there's 3 things that I really focus on with women, and that is digestion, that is sleep, and stress, right? And then strength would be like kind of the 4th there, but bone health, right? We're all at this point in our lives, we are prepping to age well, right?
Yes.
And so muscle is one of the biggest predictors of longevity and then in women. And there was some crazy research stat the other day that I heard for women, like 30% of women as they age that break their hips actually pass away. 30%.
Yes, I've heard that.
Yeah. And it's like, so we, at this point, like we got to keep muscle on us. We have to protect our bones. We have to protect our ligaments. And yeah, we're planning to age gracefully and well at this point. And there's, you get the digestion, you get the sleep, you get the stress, and then you just work on strength.
Well, you're amazing. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, this has been so amazing. And I mean, I love the fact you're also going to be a marriage and family therapist. I think you're just going to be such a wealth of information for your clients because you know how to heal the body somatically. You know how to heal the body with food, especially the gut. You know, I have acid reflux and I constantly have to make sure I'm taking care of my gut and nourishing my gut and not gave up coffee, sadly. And you're helping women with their nervous system, and now you'll be able to help them with their relationships. So you're amazing.
Thank you so much. I just want to simplify it. You know, it's like I spent so much time trying to get support and going from doctor to provider to specialist. And it was like along the way, I learned what I needed to learn on my own to support myself. And I was like, wow, if I can intercept women when they need help and like simplify it for them so they don't have to like be bounced around so much. And it's like, here's a little piece of the puzzle. Here's a little piece of the puzzle. So I try to kind of simplify it and be like, okay, as much as I can help you with, I'd like to help you with. And then of course I'll refer when it's out of scope or it's, you know, something that I don't know. But if I can at least help you go to like 3 or 4 less people, I would love to do that. So
it sounds like, well, last question for you is, what is your feelings about probiotics? You hear about them so much. Do you think they really work?
So I've taken them, and there's research that says they work, and then there's research that says they don't. I think it's another thing of just kind of trying it and getting the highest quality ones that you can. But what I actually like is food-based probiotics. So
yogurt.
Fermented foods.
Okay.
Yeah. Yogurt, miso, tempeh, sauerkraut, any type of fermented food. And that's where you're going to get, you know, food-based probiotics where it's like fresh.
Okay.
And a kind of a cool note about food-based probiotics is that every single type of food that is fermented gives you a different type of bacteria. So like, for example, I love fermented carrots. Those are going to give you a certain type of bacteria. There's fermented beets, there's fermented salsa. There's so many different ways to ferment things. And there's so many great options, especially in like California. Wise Goat Organics is one of my favorite. And I think you could even buy that online. But yeah, food-based is always going to kind of be what I think is going to be best. But as an insurance policy, and especially if you've taken a round of antibiotics, there's, you know, taking some probiotics, they're supposed to help. And I've taken them for a long time, but I don't take them right now. I only kind of take them as needed, but I focus on food-based probiotics.
I have one last question for you as we wrap up. Okay. For women who are listening right now, who feel exhausted and broken down in life, and they're going through transition, what's the very first step you'd encourage them to take?
Very first step. I really think it just is like really working on that self-love and the compassion, and everything else will come from that. And my favorite thing to do is to get in the practice of waking up in the morning before you get out of bed, put your hands on your heart and just say like, I love you. Good morning. And you can even make it fun. I don't know if I can say bad words. I won't say what I really
can.
Oh, I mean, you know, like you're like, just good morning, you bad bitch.
Yeah.
Like, you're so awesome. Are we going to rule the day today? Like, what do you need? You know, like talk to yourself, put your hands on your heart. And like, it feels so weird at first, but after a while, you just like your body starts to soften and you're like, hey, best friend, like you want to become your own best friend. And it takes practice and it takes work. But from that, everything else becomes possible. And you cannot really do any kind of work or move through life if you don't really love yourself and have compassion for yourself and know how to attune to your heart. So I think starting there, and I've even, I have different clients who are like, you know, they take it and they're like, I do it all the time now. And I write myself love notes and I do this and it's like, oh my gosh, how beautiful, you know, like we should all really get used to doing that. And somewhere along the line, someone told us it wasn't right or it was weird or like what, but let's bring it back, bring self-love back. And everyone's
love
part of
that.
the club, by the way. It's a club where everyone's part of it. You don't have to try. You don't have to apply. There's no, you were just part of the self-love club, and just remind yourself, like, this is what we do in the self-love club. We eat like we love ourselves. We move like we love ourselves, and we talk to ourselves like we love ourselves. And then you're in the club.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, Alisha, how do people get a hold of you?
Okay, so I have a website that is myalchemy.life. I'm also on Instagram, at Wellness with Alisha. And my email is myalchemylife@gmail.com.
I'm going to put all of this in the show notes. So those listening, you don't have to quickly jot it down. But if you did jot it down, that's great. So, Alisha, thank you so much. Go ahead.
One more quick thing is I offer, if anything that I've shared has kind of sparked like, oh, I have questions, or like, I want to talk to you. I have a free 30-minute offering called the Wellness Strategy Call. And it's just it's like a way for me to do market research and talk to people and kind of hear how they speak about what's going on with them. And everybody leaves with 3 wellness actions that they can take to explore, trying to help them feel better in their bodies and their minds. So I really encourage people like to reach out and just grab time with me. All of those, the link to get on my calendar is on my website.
Okay, I love this. Thank you, Alisha. It was so amazing. What a great discussion. I learned so much. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yay. Thanks for listening to Talk with Tara. If you loved today's episode, please follow the show and share it with a friend. Stay tuned. There's so much more to talk about. See you next time.